students, in the last module, we have seen the self and its processes, under which we have seen the self-concept and the self-esteem. In continuation with that module, we are going to see self-presentation and self-identity. Self-presentations are constructed, modified and played out in interaction with other people. We try to control ourselves and present ourselves with others based on the reaction expressed by others. With regard to self-identity, mostly it deals with the person's name and what position he occupies in the community. Self-identity is formed by socio-cultural conditions. Identity is used to refer to one's social phase, how one perceives, how one is perceived by others. With this short note, let us see in detail. To understand self-presentation and self-identity, in this session, we will be looking into the following. The first one is self-presentation and its nature, managing impression, strategic and expressive self-presentation, individual differences in self-presentation, self-identity and its importance, components of self-identity theory, how to build self-identity, benefits of self-identity, the concept of social identity, choosing self-identity over social identity. The first one, we are going to see the concept of self-presentation. Self-presentation is any behavior or action intended to create, modify or maintain an impression of ourselves in the minds of others. Anytime we are trying to get people to think of us in certain way, it is an act of self-presentation. In general, we work to present ourselves as favorably as possible. When we engage in self-presentation, when we are alone, for example, we rehearse what we are going to say or do in public, molding our behavior to an imaginary or anticipated audience. Sometimes this rehearsal is deliberate and noticeable, as when we prepare for a job interview or a public speaking engagement. Other times it is automatic and almost imperceptible, as when we mindlessly check our hair in the mirror before stepping out the front door. The nature of self-presentation. Why do people engage in self-presentation? The first one it is facilitate social interaction. Each person has a role to play and the interaction proceeds smoothly when these roles are enacted effectively. For example, airline pilots are expected to be poised and dignified as long as they convince their passengers and able to make them remain calm and behave in an orderly manner. The function of self-presentation was first highlighted by Erving Goffman. Goffman noted that social life is highly structured. In some cases, this structure is formalized. For example, state dinners at the White House are characterized by strict rules of protocol. According to Goffman, the front, which is the formal and public stage where people act certain personas as they would like others to view them. In the backstage, the people don't play any game because they are not on the stage or they are not posting on social media. The second one it is gain material and social rewards. People strive to create impressions of themselves in the minds of others in order to gain material and social rewards and to avoid material and social punishments. It is usually in our best interest to have others view us in a particular way. Employees generally have a material interest in being perceived as bright, committed and promising. If they are successful in inducing these impressions in the minds of their employers, they are apt to be promoted and given increment. Social rewards also depend on our ability to convince others that we possess particular qualities. For example, the student who makes an impression that he is obedient and does his homework regularly convinces the teacher and gets the recognition by the teacher as a disciplined and obedient student, which is a social reward in front of other students in the class. This type of strategic self-presentation assumes that we are in a better position to influence others and able to control how others see us. It does not mean that we are trying to deceive others. It can also involve genuine attempts to bring out positive qualities to the attention of others. The third one, self-construction. We try to create impressions of ourselves in the minds of others is to construct a particular identity for ourselves. Convincing others that we possess some quality or attribute is a means of convincing ourselves. Self-construction is initiated to create an identity. This is most prevalent during adolescence. Adolescents routinely try out different identities. They adopt the dress and various mannerisms to make people's reactions to these displays in an attempt to fashion and also his identity. Self-enhancement needs also underlie self-construction. Most people like to think of themselves as being competent, likable, talented, and so on. In this sense, we can say that people seek to create impressions in the minds of others because it makes them feel good about themselves to do so. Social construction also serves as a motivation in order to prove their identity in a positive way. When and how do people manage impressions? People form impressions of us whenever we are in public, but we are not always actively monitoring or regulating those impressions. In many situations, our self-presentations are automatic or habitual, and we are devoting little conscious attention to how we are being perceived by others. In other situations, we become acutely aware of the impressions we are creating and we actively strive to take control of these impressions. The first one is situational variables that influence impression motivation. The first component of self-presentation is a motivational one. Before we can create a desired impression, job interview is the prototypic example. In this situation, we are highly concerned with making a positive impression and we try to put our best foot forward. The motivation to engage in self-presentation also tends to increase when we are the focus of other people's attention. For example, speaking in front of a group or audience is an aversive experience. It causes them to become highly aware of their public identities. Camera and tape recorders can also make us aware of our public appearance as they remind us of how we are seen by others. Familiarity with an audience is another factor that influences the nature of self-presentation. People are more attentive to the impressions they are creating when they are interacting with casual acquaintances and business associates than interacting with close friends, family members, and loved ones. For example, many people walk around the house with their hair uncombed, but they wouldn't go out to a business meeting that way. The second one is social acuity. Once we are motivated to create a particular impression, we need to possess an awareness of how that impression can best be created. This cognitive ability is called social acuity. Social acuity refers to our ability to know what we would need to do in order to successfully create a desired impression. For example, if I want to convince others that I am witty, I must figure out what is required. I need to know what behaviors I must execute in order to create the desired impression. To create a desired impression, we must put ourselves in other people's shoes and determine what behaviors would produce a given impression. The third one it is behavioral skills. Behavioral skills are the third component of successful self-presentation. People need to be capable of performing the behaviors they believe will create a desired impression. Numerous tactics are used to create a desired impression. Verbal claims are perhaps the most common strategy. Like actors, we also use props to establish our characters. Our hair, figure, and clothing all serve to create particular impression of us in the minds of others. People draw inferences about what we are like from observing our mannerisms and gestures and the way we stand and walk. Let us see the strategic self-presentation. What impressions do people try to create? The number of impressions people try to create of themselves in the minds of others is almost limitless. There are two general classes of motive for self-presentation: strategic and expressive. Ned Jones and Thorne Pidman in 1982 identified 5 strategic motives in the way we attempt to present ourselves. The first one it is ingratiation. Ingratiation is probably the most familiar impression management strategy. The goal of ingratiation is to get the other person to like you. Since we tend to like people who agree with us, say nice things about us, do favors for us, and possess positive interpersonal qualities, that is, warmth and kindness, it should come as no surprise that ingratiation can be accomplished through imitation, flattery, doing favors for someone, and displaying positive personal characteristics. Ingratiation may backfire if it is too blatant. If your audience knows you are trying to manipulate them, they may come to distrust or dislike you. This is rarely acute. People want to believe they are likable and are liked by others. The second one it is self-promotion. Here, we seek to convince people of our competence. This is not the same as ingratiation. With ingratiation, we are trying to get people to like us. With self-promotion, we are trying to get people to think we are capable, intelligent, or talented. For example, job offers are extended to applicants who are perceived as highly competent and pleasant to be around. Unfortunately, it is not always easy to simultaneously display both of these qualities. For example, modesty can be an effective form of ingratiation, but it rarely instills a perception of competence. The third one it is intimidation. Sometimes people want to be feared. This is intimidation. An employer, for example, might want to be viewed as tough, powerful, or ruthless. These views might serve to increase her workers' productivity, and often their demands for salary increases and other benefits. For example, a manager in the company may or may not be liked, but he was respected and feared the work done by the workers based on the impression of intimidation. The fourth one is exemplification. Another form of self-presentation is exemplification. With exemplification, people attempt to create the impression that they are morally superior, virtuous, or righteous. Exemplification is often portrayed by exaggerating the degree to which one has suffered poor treatment at the hands of others or has endured excessive hardships. The fifth one, it is supplication. Supplication occurs when people publicly exaggerate their weaknesses and deficiencies. For example, in earlier times, women were expected to play helpless rather than appear competent in order to attract their mate. Men do this as well, of course, as when a husband claims do not know how to use the dishwasher or washing machine. The more general point is that people will sometimes exaggerate their incompetence and frailties if doing so gets them what they want. Expressive self-presentation. Expressive motives for self-presentation involve demonstrating and validating our self-concept through our actions. The focus is more on oneself than on others. The expressive motive for self-presentation is a strong one because a particular identity or self-concept is worthless unless it is recognized and validated by others. It is of little use to me if I think I am a genius but no one else does. Identity requires social validation for it to persist and serve a useful function. Individual differences in self-presentation. Although everyone engages in self-presentation, people vary with respect to how concerned they are with their public image and with the kinds of impressions they try to convey. High self-monitors regard themselves as highly pragmatic and flexible people who strive to be the right person for every occasion. When entering a social situation, they try to discern what the model or prototypic person would do in this situation. Low self-monitors adopt a different orientation. They regard themselves as highly principled people who value consistency between who they are and what they do. Instead of striving to be the right person for the situation, they strive to be themselves in social settings. To illustrate these differences, imagine that you and another person are discussing recent movies and that the person tells you, "See, liked a particular movie that you did not like." What will you do? Basically, three choices are there. You can say you also liked the movie, even though you didn't. The second one, voice your true opinion and admit that you didn't like the movie. The third one, avoid taking a stand, perhaps by changing the subject. High self-monitors are more apt to choose the first option than are low self-monitors. High self-monitors are social chameleons. In contrast, low self-monitors think of themselves as highly principled individuals who cherish being true to themselves in various situations. Self-presentation and human nature. Self-presentation is a basic fact of social life. People influence the images of themselves that are projected to others, but where is the real self in all this? Each of us has multiple selves, which we present to different people in different ways by selecting certain characteristics and omitting other. Therefore, presentation of self is an integral part of everyday social interaction. Now we are going to see about self-identity. The formation of self and identity is first and foremost a diverse, complicated process including both conscious and unconscious aspects. It may be thought of as a chain of interconnected events that encompasses all the changes in how teenagers perceive themselves in relation to others and their socio-cultural setting. The concept of self-identity. Self-identity is how you identify and define yourself. It is your perception of specific and selective traits, qualities, abilities, and characteristics that represent you. Self-identity is a combination of personal traits, abilities, physical attributes, interests, hobbies, and social roles from your personal identity that you specifically selected to identify yourself. Self-identity is a term that refers to a person's self-definition, self-referent cognitions, or self-concept that they apply to themselves as a result of the structural role positions they have or a particular action they engage in on a regular basis. The labels people employ to define themselves are reflected in self-identities. A person's self-identities may include being a blood donor, a social worker, a daughter, a wife, a father, a grandfather, for example. An honest opinion and correct understanding of oneself can be understood as our identity. If someone asks you to describe yourself, we refer to ourselves as I or me or our names. When we describe I in our own words and the way we see ourselves, it is known as self-identity. When you believe in your idea of yourself, it is known as self-identity. If you believe in your version of yourself, then you will not let any negative mark affect your self-identity. The benefit of understanding self-identity is that we get to explore and understand ourselves. Importance of self-identity. Our identity builds our personality, that is individuality. Incorrect perception of self leads to delusional identity, that is, we think of ourselves as what we are not. Every person is different and unique. It creates standards for us to achieve. Going by social identity, you work according to societal expectations. But when you understand your self-identity, you understand how it benefits you. Firstly, maintaining self-identity is important because it strengthens your character. That is, when we know who we are, have confidence in ourselves and are able to identify our strengths, we emerge as stronger individuals. Secondly, it keeps us unique and distinguishes. Thirdly, maintaining our self-identity keeps us comfortable. The sooner we embrace ourselves, flaws and all, the sooner we rid ourselves of insecurities and become comfortable with who we are. And believe me, you cannot put a price on being comfortable in your own skin. Finally, we become more aware of our immediate environment and our place in it. We are all here for a purpose, and recognizing our self-identity equips us with what we need to live out with that purpose. Components of self-identity theory. Self-identity theory is a prominent theory in psychology and sociology. This theory is heavily influenced by Carl Rogers' work, a prominent psychologist. Rogers pioneered the idea of self-concept, which is how individuals think about themselves, their actions, and their place in society. According to Rogers, individuals seek to validate their own ideas about themselves through their actions and achievements. They evaluate their self-identity with the identity they aspire to have, their ideal self. Self-identity is a composite of various roles. It is affected by many other items in an individual's life, including self-esteem, one's social identity. Roles. There are many roles and responsibilities. Individuals have come together to create self-identity. These roles may include political affiliations, gender roles, religious roles, and community responsibilities. Self-identity can change over time while achieving certain milestones or changing from one lifestyle to another. This can shift an individual's self-identity. For example, changing from one religion to another. Change from one religion to another completely involves the change of one's values. This change can cause a major shift in one's self-identity. Earning a college degree. When individuals pass the bar exam, their self-identity can change from law student to a lawyer. College graduates have more privileges than students, but they also must fulfill responsibilities and obligations placed upon them by society. Election or appointment to an office. When one achieves public office, they are entitled to certain titles which may be incorporated into their self-identity. However, just as in the other examples, this recognition also comes with expectations. While these individuals may have demonstrated to the public that they can perform competently in their office, they may have self-doubt brought on by low self-esteem. Next, we will see how to build self-identity. Every person in the world has a unique identity that distinguishes them from everybody else. To strengthen self-identity and the interpersonal boundaries, the following are explored. Intellectual. You are entitled to your ideas, opinions, beliefs, preferences and philosophy on life as are others. Emotional. You are entitled to your feelings and reactions as are others. It is based on your feelings and emotions when things are happened in your life. Physical. You are entitled to your space as are others. It is based on your feelings about your surroundings, privacy, belongings and the people who impact these. Social. You are entitled to your friends and to pursuing your interest as are others. It is based on the people and the things that are interesting to you. Story. Your life is an unfolding story. It is based on the favorite memories and accomplishments and the hopes for the future. Next, we will see the benefits of self-identity. Self-identity is important because if you do not know yourself, then you cannot answer who you are. If you know and believe in your ideas about yourself, then you gain confidence. There are several ways to gain confidence. You learn to balance your emotions like in the earlier situation. You will not feel angry or sad when someone passes a negative comment. When you realize the importance of self-identity, you are able to control your actions. Like while driving, when the car is in your control and not someone else. Being in control of your actions means that you are the sole decision maker and no one else is making your decisions. That is, no one else can control your car. When you feel confident, you become emotionally balanced and learn the techniques of emotional management and know how to act. Then you realize who you are. You understand your true self and you feel an internal satisfaction. What is social identity? Our friends, family, or teachers define us differently. If you ask your friend, mother, or teacher to describe to you, there will be some similarities and dissimilarities in their answers. This is because everyone's perspective view is different. When we start to believe someone else's perspective of us, it is known as social identity. You trust someone else's idea of you. We often believe in negative remarks because we lack self-identity. We feel that others, even strangers, know us better. We believe in their judgment more than ours. On the other hand, when you do not let any negative comment affect you and believe in your performance, here you act according to your self-identity. How to choose self-identity over social identity? We cannot remove people or their opinions from our lives, but we can definitely control their impact on us. To keep a check on your choice of identity, you can look out for the following. Your self-identity is the core and builds social identity. Try to understand your experiences through self-identity. Experiences act as learning stones. They shape our identity. Growing up, we did not know that we act according to two identities, self-identity and social identity. Without even realizing, we mostly acted as per our social identity due to a strong and persistent presence of people in your life. But now we know the benefits of self-identity and how to believe in our self-identity. This point forward, we can make an aware and conscious decision to ensure that our self-identity influences and drives our social identity. To conclude this module, self is made up of multiple angles relating to various aspects of a person's life. Self-presentation and self-identity occupies a very important position in the process of self. It gives a self-image based on how an individual deals with it. Summary. Self-presentation is any behavior or action intended to create, modify or maintain an impression of ourselves in the minds of others. Anytime we are trying to get people to think of us a certain way, it is an act of self-presentation. To facilitate social interaction, to gain material and social rewards, and also for social construction, to facilitate social interaction, to gain material and social rewards, and also for self-construction, the people engage in self-presentation. Situational variables that influence impression motivation, social acuity, and behavioral skills are important components of self-presentation. There are two general classes of motive for self-presentation, strategic and expressive. Ingresation, self-promotion, intimidation, exemplification, and supplication are the 5 common strategic self-presentations. Expressive motives for self-presentation involve demonstrating and validating our self-concept through our actions. The focus is more on oneself than on others. Individual differences are there in self-presentation. High self-monitors are social chameleons. In contrast, low self-monitors think of themselves as highly principled individuals who cherish being true to themselves in various situations. Self-identity is how you identify and define yourself. It is your perception of specific and selective traits, qualities, abilities, and characteristics that represent you. Importance of self-identity, components of self-identity theory, factors that helps to build self-identity, and the benefits of self-identity, the concept of social identity and how to choose self-identity over social identity gives a clear understanding about the self-identity. Thank you.